Michel Foucault's The Order of Things, An Archaeology of the Human Sciences, 1966, stands as a profound and transformative work exploring the evolution of human knowledge throughout history. In this seminal text, Foucault embarks on an ambitious investigation into how entire frameworks of understanding, what he terms epistemes, govern the ways societies conceive of reality, categorize knowledge, and construct disciplines such as biology, economics, and linguistics. This work fundamentally challenges the notion that knowledge is universal, timeless, or objective by revealing that what is accepted as truth is contingent upon historically specific cultural conditions. Instead of uncovering eternal laws of knowledge, Foucault invites us to perceive knowledge as fluid and discontinuous, shaped by the shifting epistemic structures underlying each era. To grasp the richness of Foucault's analysis, it is essential to understand his philosophical roots. Foucault's thought is deeply indebted to structuralism, drawing on figures like Claude Lévi-Strauss and Ferdinand de Saussure, who illuminated the underlying systems and rules organizing human knowledge. Yet, Foucault diverges sharply from traditional structuralism by refusing to accept universal or static structures. He emphasizes the historical specificity and rupture that define knowledge systems. This anticipation of post-structuralist critiques forms a cornerstone of his approach, highlighting the contingency and instability of meaning. Furthermore, Foucault's method is influenced by Nietzsche's genealogical approach, tracing the power relations and historical contingencies that produce knowledge rather than viewing it as neutral or inevitable. He critiques phenomenology's focus on subjective experience, redirecting attention to the structural and institutional conditions shaping thought. Drawing also from the history and philosophy of science, especially through Georges Canguilhem, Foucault situates epistemes within broader cultural transformations, underscoring how shifts in scientific paradigms reflect changes in societal worldviews. At the heart of the order of things lies the concept of the episteme. Foucault defines the episteme not simply as a body of knowledge or a rational system, but as the fundamental framework of discursive practices that determine what is knowable and thinkable during a particular historical period. This means that each epoch operates under a distinct set of rules and assumptions governing the production of knowledge, rules which are neither eternal nor universal but transient and historically contingent. For example, during the Renaissance, knowledge was organized around principles of resemblance and analogy, where natural phenomena were linked through symbolic correspondences, such as the doctrine of signatures, which suggested that the shape of a walnut resembled a brain and therefore could cure mental illness. By contrast, the classical age saw the rise of classification and order, exemplified by Carl Linnaeus's systematic taxonomy, where knowledge aimed to establish clear identities and differences among objects. In the modern era, the emergence of the human sciences introduced new ways of understanding humans themselves, situating them both as objects of study and as subjects producing meaning, with figures like Darwin redefining biology by situating humans within evolutionary history. Closely related to this discussion is Foucault's provocative notion of the death of man. He challenges the modern humanist conception of man as a universal, stable subject of knowledge. According to Foucault, man is a recent invention tied to the rise of the modern episteme, emerging in the 19th century as both an empirical object, studied by new sciences such as psychology and sociology, and as a transcendental subject, the source of meaning and knowledge. This dual status is exemplified in psychoanalysis, which simultaneously analyzes humans as objects while exploring their internal subjective experiences. Foucault's critique calls for a rethinking of human-centered frameworks, suggesting that this figure of man might be approaching an end, to be replaced by new epistemic configurations that decenter the human subject in favor of broader ecological or relational systems. Foucault's method of archaeological analysis underpins the entire work, aiming to uncover the underlying conditions that make knowledge possible within a given episteme. Archaeology, as he describes it, is not a search for linear progress or continuous accumulation, but an investigation into the breaks, discontinuities, and rules that govern the emergence and organization of discourses. This method highlights how disciplines evolve by defining what can be said, who can speak, and which statements are considered valid. For instance, the transition from alchemy to chemistry involved not just a change in scientific content but a fundamental shift in the conceptualization of matter, experiment, and classification, thus reshaping what counted as legitimate scientific inquiry. Another major theme is Foucault's examination of order and classification, through which cultural assumptions and power relations are embedded in the very structure of knowledge. The way societies classify and organize objects, beings, and concepts reveals their underlying epistemic logic and power dynamics. The shift from Linnaeus's fixed taxonomy to Darwin's evolutionary framework, for example, represents not merely a scientific advance but a profound transformation in how life itself is understood and categorized. This insight extends beyond biology to other social classifications, informing critical examinations of racial, medical, and gender categories. Language and representation are equally central to Foucault's analysis. He traces how the relationship between words and things changes across epistemes, from the Renaissance belief in language as a mirror of reality to the classical age's view of language as a tool for ordering the world, to the modern focus on language as an autonomous system analyzed in itself, as seen in modern linguistics. These shifts in linguistic understanding parallel changes in broader systems of knowledge, underscoring how language shapes social realities and power structures. The relevance of the order of things extends far beyond academic philosophy. Foucault's insights provoke critical thinking by encouraging us to question the foundational assumptions underlying scientific, cultural, and political knowledge. In education, this means challenging curricula that perpetuate outdated or Eurocentric epistemes and advocating for more inclusive, historically aware frameworks. His work enhances media literacy by revealing how language and classification systems shape public discourse, equipping individuals to resist manipulation by dominant institutions. Foucault's critique of the construction of man and social categories like race, gender, and class furthers contemporary struggles for social justice by deconstructing essentialist identities. Moreover, his archaeological method fosters interdisciplinary collaboration, emphasizing the cultural and historical specificity of knowledge across fields. Nevertheless, Foucault's work has not gone without critique. Marxist scholars argue that his focus on epistemes downplays the material and economic forces driving historical change, suggesting that his emphasis on discourse neglects the foundational role of economic structures. Feminist theorists, such as Judith Butler, build upon but also critique Foucault for insufficiently addressing gender as a central axis of power, leading to important expansions of his discourse theory into gender performativity. Postmodern thinkers like Derrida caution that despite Foucault's rejection of universalism, his archaeology risks imposing another overarching grand narrative. Empirically minded historians also question Foucault's selective use of evidence and the emphasis on rupture, suggesting that history may be more continuous and complex than his framework allows. In conclusion, Michel Foucault's The Order of Things offers a groundbreaking and richly detailed account of how knowledge systems evolve through historical shifts in epistemes, deeply intertwined with language, classification, and power. This work challenges us to reconsider what we take as objective truth or rational knowledge, emphasizing the contingent and constructed nature of human understanding. While it remains subject to critiques from various theoretical perspectives, The Order of Things remains foundational for anyone seeking to understand the cultural, historical, and political dimensions of knowledge. It inspires ongoing critical inquiry, and invites us to rethink the very origins and implications of what we claim to know. If you found this exploration insightful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into philosophy, critical theory, and the history of ideas. Your support helps us keep the conversation going.